It all began with silence, not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that presses heavily on the chest, like something hiding just beyond the edge of reason, waiting for the right moment to reach out. In that quiet, there lived a boy named Eloy, a 17-year-old from a forgotten barangay in a province where time stood still. The kind of place where people didn't leave because they couldn't, and those who did never came back the same. Eloy grew up in a crumbling bamboo hut beside the edge of the forest, with nothing but his Lola and an old transistor radio that crackled more than it spoke. His parents? Long gone. One drowned in a river people never swam in, and the other disappeared one rainy night when Eloy was just a baby. No one ever found the body. They said it was a swangs, but adults always whispered nonsense to scare children. Or so he thought. Life wasn't kind to Eloy. At school, he was the kid with mismatched slippers and a bag stitched together with fishing line. He kept his head down, avoided fights, and never asked for help. Yet, he had one friend, Mando, the cheerful, chubby boy who always brought an extra sandwich and shared ghost stories during lunch. Mando believed everything had a spirit, trees, stones, even the wind. Eloy didn't, not really. He believed in hunger, rain that leaked through their roof, and the ache in his chest that never really went away. Still, there were nights when things didn't feel right. It started with the dreams. At first, they were blurry, a woman in white, standing beneath the bolete tree at the back of their hut. No face, just long black hair dripping wet, her arms limp at her sides. Then came the voices, whispering behind his ear, just as he'd drift off, too low to understand, too real to ignore. One morning, Eloy found muddy footprints on their floor, small, bare feet, but neither he nor his Lola had left the house. Lola brushed it off, saying it was just the neighbor's kid playing pranks. But there were no neighbors nearby. Their house stood alone, far from the others, surrounded by thick trees that swallowed sound. A week later, he heard again, the knocking, not on the door but on the roof. 3 taps, then silence, then 3 more. He told Mando, who just laughed, saying maybe a tick-tick was watching him sleep. But his laugh faded when Eloy mentioned the woman in his dreams. "Don't follow her," Mando said quietly, finally serious. "Even in your dreams. Don't follow her." But it was too late. That night, Eloy did. She led him deeper and deeper into the woods behind their house, barefoot on wet earth. He could feel the cold between his toes, could smell the decay of rotting leaves, and something worse. Iron and salt. Her face remained hidden, but he followed like something inside him wanted to. When he woke up, there was mud on his feet. Real mud. Real wet leaves in his bed. He hadn't been dreaming. Eloy didn't tell anyone after that. He didn't need to. The change had already begun. He started seeing shadows that didn't belong to anything. Reflections that moved out of sync. Children playing beside the school who weren't students, who disappeared when anyone looked directly at them. One afternoon, as the sun cast long golden rays through the trees, Eloy and Mando sat on the bridge near the rice fields. For a brief moment, things felt normal. They laughed about their teacher's wig nearly falling off in class. Mando shared half of his pan de cocoa, and Eloy smiled for the first time in weeks. He almost believed things were okay. But then he saw her, across the field, the woman, standing, still as stone, watching him. And this time, she had a face. It looked like his mother's. He blinked, and she was gone. From then on, the signs grew worse. Animals in the forest avoided him. Dogs howled when he walked past. His Lolas started forgetting things, calling him by another name, saying, "Hindi ka apo ko, sino ka biye?" One night, she screamed in her sleep, and in the morning, her eyes were gray, lifeless, like she had seen something that stole the light from her soul. Eloy stopped sleeping. He roamed the village at night, trying to make sense of what was happening. He asked the albulario, who gave him a bundle of herbs and told him not to look into mirrors after dark. "You won't like what you see," the old man said. But Eloy already had. In one reflection, he saw his mouth moving, but no sound came out. In another, he wasn't alone. The woman stood behind him, smiling. People began talking. They said the boy was cursed, that maybe he brought something back from the woods. Some avoided him. Some stared with pity. Others just made the sign of the cross when he passed by. Even Mando kept his distance after that, until the night Eloy disappeared. That was what the villagers said. One moment he was sitting by the river. The next, only his slippers were left behind, placed neatly side by side. But this is where our story truly begins. Because Eloy didn't vanish. He woke up in a place not quite here, but not quite there either. A place where the trees whispered in forgotten tongues, and the moon hung too low, red and bleeding. A place that felt like the world, but smelled like the dead. He wasn't alone. There were others. Some weeping, some laughing, some just staring at him like he was the intruder. And from the shadows, she emerged. Not the woman in white, but something older, hungrier. It called him by name, not the one he knew, but the one he didn't remember ever being called. And it smiled, with teeth like knives and eyes that had watched 1,000 lifetimes pass. Eloy tried to run, but the ground beneath him pulsed like a heartbeat, holding him in place. Then everything went black, and that's just the beginning. In the next part, we'll uncover what Eloy saw in that place and why he was never meant to leave. But before we dive deeper into these real-life nightmares, ask yourself, are you sure you want to know what's on the other side of the dark? Because once you open that door, you can't close it. When Eloy woke up, the ground beneath him was wet and breathing. Trees bent unnaturally, as though bowing to something unseen, and the wind carried whispers and voices that didn't belong to any living soul. The sky was dark, not because it was night, but because the sun didn't seem to exist here. Everything was still except for the eyes. They were everywhere, glowing faintly in the shadows. Some blinked slowly, others never closed. He could feel them watching, measuring, remembering. Eloy tried to scream, but his voice was caught in his throat like something was holding it there, waiting for permission to release it. His hands touched the ground, soft, almost like skin, and he pulled himself up. That's when he saw the figure again. The woman. Not white-clad this time. Her long, soaked hair clung to her face, and her eyes, deep and black, held pain and warning. "You shouldn't have followed me." Her voice echoed in his head, not in his ears. Then everything shifted. The forest around him cracked like glass. The sky shattered into pieces. And he was back in his room, sweating, panting, feet muddy again, but now with small scratches across his arms and dried blood on his palms. But something was different this time. His Lola was gone. The hut was empty. Her bed was untouched, too clean. The old radio was silent. Outside, neighbors said she had wandered off early in the morning into the woods, just like his mother, just like everyone who went missing in their bloodline. Because that's what it was now, a pattern, one no one dared say aloud. In the days that followed, Eloy barely spoke. Even Mando, though trying to help, noticed the change. Eloy's eyes looked older, his body weaker, and around him, strange things began to happen. Flames on candles flickered when he passed. Stray dogs growled, but never barked. And his shadow moved even when he didn't. The Barangi priest refused to visit their house. The neighbors whispered of a Sumpa, a curse carried by the blood of Eloy's family. And then, one rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled across the skies, a visitor came. An old man, wearing a worn red shawl, barefoot despite the mud. His skin was dark and cracked like tree bark. His eyes glowed with a dim light, as if fire lived behind them. He called himself Tatong Idro, the last Bante of the mountain spirits. A healer, yes, but also a keeper of secrets too dangerous to forget. I've waited years to speak with you, he said, handing Eloy a tightly wrapped bundle of banana leaves. Inside was a single mutia, a translucent, green stone that pulsed gently in his palm. This belonged to your mother, and her mother before that. But none of them ever unlocked it. Eloy stared. What is it? It's not what it is, but what it protects, Tatong said. Inside your blood is something the Aswangs fear, and also what they hunt. He then told Eloy the truth, a story buried by shame and silence. Years ago, Eloy's mother, Lyra, was a Babalan in training, a healer and spiritual guide, born with the gift of sight. But she fell in love with a man from the lowlands, someone forbidden to her kind. That man, Eloy's father, carried a bloodline twisted by darkness, a descendant of Aswangs, trying to escape the evil inside him. Their love created Eloy, a child born of light and shadow. But light and shadow cannot live together. The curse awakened once Lyra's mother died. That was the night the Aswangs came. They dragged Lyra's husband into the river and cursed her unborn child to forever walk between two worlds. Never truly human, never fully monster. Tadong warned that the curse was reaching its peak. That Eloy's awakening had started. The strange dreams, the waking visions, the mirror shadows, they were all signs. The Aswangs could feel his presence now, smell him, and they would not stop until he was either taken or turned. But you have a choice, Tatong said, placing the mutia against Eloy's chest. It sank slightly into his skin, glowing for a moment before fading from view. This stone is now part of you. It will protect your soul, but only if you train your spirit. For the next few nights, Eloy stayed with Tatong in a cave hidden near the river, where enchanted sigils glowed on the walls and fire danced without fuel. There, Eloy learned to hear what others could not, the voices of the unseen. He learned to focus his breath, to quiet the fear, to touch the earth and feel its memory. Tatong also gave him a wooden kabibi, a strange shell that hummed when placed near water. This will lead you to truth, Tatong said, but it will never show you comfort. The training was painful. Eloy's body often trembled. His dreams grew more violent. Each lesson was like peeling away a layer of protection until his soul was bare, raw, open. He began to see Aswangs in human form, vendors with too perfect smiles, strangers who never blinked, even a teacher who had no reflection at all. The world was no longer safe. Mando tried to reach out again, confused and scared for his friend, but Eloy pushed him away. "Stay away from me," he whispered. "It's safer for you." But Mando didn't listen. One evening, as Eloy trained near the river, Mando appeared, soaked from the rain, holding a flashlight and panting. "I don't care if you're cursed," he shouted. "I'm your friend." Eloy turned just as a chilling wind blew past them. From the trees came the rustling, not leaves but wings. Large, leathery wings. The sky darkened unnaturally, and the air grew thick with rot. A shape emerged from the forest, tall and gaunt. Eyes red, its tongue impossibly long, slithering from its mouth. It wore the clothes of a Barangari Kagawad, but its skin stretched too tightly over bone, and its fingers ended in claws. Mando froze. Eloy stepped in front of him. The Aswang growled but did not attack. Instead, it bowed its head. "You are awakening," it hissed. "Soon, you will choose, and we will welcome you home." Then it vanished into the trees, the sound of its wings lingering like thunder. Eloy collapsed to his knees. He knew now, the final choice was coming. The blood of his family held a power that both protected and cursed. He wasn't just being hunted, he was being recruited. Somewhere deep within him, a force stirred, something ancient, buried, waiting. Tadong returned the next day, grave and silent. They won't give up, and neither should you. He placed a new item in Eloy's hand, an heirloom dagger, etched with symbols from a forgotten dialect. It glowed faintly when touched by moonlight. "This blade will not kill them," he said, "but it will remind them you are not afraid." Eloy held the dagger tight. He wasn't ready, but he was no longer alone, and the war for his soul had begun. That night, Eloy sat alone in the cave, holding the dagger in his hands. The fire was low, its flames dancing like they, too, were uncertain of what came next. He stared at the blade, watching how the moonlight made it shimmer, how the symbols seemed to breathe. But his hands shook, not from fear of the monsters, but from the questions eating at his heart. Why hadn't his family told him? Why did they keep the truth buried until it was too late? The memory of his mother came back, her gentle smile, her lullabies at night, her voice promising him safety. But now, those memories felt like lies dressed in love. She knew what he was. She knew the danger, and yet she chose silence. Did she abandon him, or try to protect him? He didn't know anymore, and that made the weight in his chest even heavier. The wind outside howled, carrying faint voices that sounded like whispers and sobs. Tadong Idro was out gathering herbs, and Eloy was alone, truly alone. His thoughts kept circling back to his bloodline. The mutia in his chest still pulsed from time to time, like a second heartbeat. It was supposed to protect him, but it was also a reminder. He wasn't like everyone else. He was caught in between, human, yes, but something else too. Something darker. He touched the mark where the stone had fused into his skin, and he wondered, what if that darkness inside him wasn't just a curse? What if it was calling him? Suddenly, the fire went out. The cave became pitch black, and then a sound. Soft, wet footsteps echoing from the back of the cave. But there was no opening there. No one could be walking behind him. Eloy stood up, dagger in hand, eyes scanning the darkness. The temperature dropped. He could see his breath, and then he heard it. A voice, not a whisper, not a growl. It was his mother's voice. Enek, he froze. "Come with me." Her tone was calm, loving, familiar. But something was wrong. Too perfect, too smooth. Eloy backed away. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, tall, pale, wearing the exact face of his mother. But her feet never touched the ground. Her arms hung lifeless, and her eyes were pitch black. The creature smiled. "I never wanted to leave you," it said. Eloy gripped the dagger tighter. "You're not her." The smile disappeared, and then it lunged. He raised the dagger just in time. When the blade touched its skin, the creature screamed and vanished like smoke, leaving behind the stench of rot and river mud. Eloy dropped to his knees, heart racing, breath shallow. It wasn't just in his head anymore. They were inside his mind, using his memories, his pain. They were testing him. And worse, they knew where he was. When Tadong returned, he found Eloy outside the cave, staring at the stars with a blank face. "They're playing with me," Eloy muttered. "They know my weakness." Tadong nodded. Pain is the door they walk through. Eloy looked at him, eyes tired. "Why didn't my mother tell me the truth? Why did she let me grow up like this, confused, broken, alone?" Tadong sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes, love chooses silence when truth would only destroy the child. But maybe she also believed in your strength. Eloy didn't answer. He didn't feel strong. He felt like something fragile, being pulled in two directions, his past and his future, his blood and his heart, his pain and his purpose. In the days that followed, strange signs began appearing around the village. Chickens were found headless but not eaten. Black feathers floated from nowhere. Babies cried through the night, no matter how their mothers rocked them. One man, Mang Paquito, claimed to have seen his dead wife standing outside their hut at midnight. When he opened the door, she disappeared, and his baby was missing. They found the child at dawn, unharmed, sleeping on the roof. People began to panic, and though no one said it out loud, their eyes always turned to Eloy. He had become the center of fear. Even Mando kept his distance now, unsure whether Eloy was the key to saving them or the reason everything was falling apart. That broke Eloy's heart more than anything. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Eloy walked the path behind the abandoned chapel, alone. He needed space, time to think. His chest ached, not from training, but from the growing doubt inside him. Was he really meant to fight this evil? Or was he just another pawn? Suddenly, the silence broke. A rustling in the bushes. A low hiss. He turned, raising his dagger, but saw nothing. Then a child stepped out, barefoot, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Kuya," she said, "can you help me find my Nene?" Eloy lowered the blade slightly. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl didn't answer. She smiled, and her teeth were razor sharp. Eloy reacted just in time, slashing forward. The creature screamed, not like a child, but like a pig being slaughtered, then vanished into the ground like melting wax. He dropped to his knees, breathing hard. They were sending more of them now. Tricksters, shadows, memories, all testing him, weakening him, preparing him for something. Later that night, Tadong confirmed his fears. "They're not trying to kill you, Eloy," he said. "They're trying to break you." "Why?" Eloy asked. "Why not just end it?" Tadong looked into the fire. "Because there's something inside you that hasn't awakened yet. A gift, a weapon, a key, and they want it, or they want to make sure you never use it." Eloy stared into the flames. "What if I fail? Then the darkness wins," Tadong said simply. Eloy didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fire, dagger across his lap, Mutia glowing faintly inside his chest. He thought of his mother. Was she still alive somewhere? Or had the curse claimed her? He thought of his Lola. Where did she go? Why did she vanish without a trace? And then he thought of Mando, loyal, foolish Mando, the only person who never asked for anything except friendship. And now, even that was slipping away. The next morning, he made a decision. He walked back to the village. People watched him from their windows. Doors were shut, children hidden, but he didn't stop. He went straight to the riverbank where his mother used to bathe. He knelt by the water, placed the kabibi shell near the edge, and waited. It began to hum. Then it glowed, and a shape formed in the water, faint, rippling like smoke. It was his mother, but not a monster this time. Her face was calm, her eyes tired. "Eloy," her voice came, soft as the wind. "I am sorry." He reached out, but the image faded. The message was clear. Somewhere out there, part of her still remained. Not all was lost, but time was running out, and the darkness was closing in. As the wind howled through the trees and distant screams echoed from the mountain, Eloy stood, gripping the dagger tightly. His journey wasn't over. It had barely begun, and soon the final test would come. Would he rise or fall to the shadows within his own blood? Only the night would tell. The days grew darker, not just because of the thick clouds that never seemed to leave the sky, but because fear had taken over the land. Birds no longer sang in the trees. The river ran slower, and its waters had turned murky brown, like something rotten flowed from the mountain. Even the wind changed. It used to whisper through the bamboo gently. Now it hissed like it carried warnings. Eloy felt it deep in his chest. The Mutia, once calm and steady, now throbbed with heat, like it was reacting to something drawing near. Something ancient, something evil. Tadong Idro told him the signs were clear. The Aswangs were gathering, preparing. They weren't hiding anymore. Livestock were being killed openly. Trees were found slashed with claws, and twice already they had heard the chilling cries of creatures flying overhead at night, half human, half beast. The villagers knew war was coming, even if they didn't speak of it. And Eloy? He was at the center of it all, but doubt still wrapped around him like vines. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered his mother's face, half real, half illusion. Was she alive? Or had the darkness claimed her soul? Sometimes he thought he heard her voice in his dreams, calling his name. Sometimes gentle, sometimes screaming. He wanted to believe he could save her. But what if she didn't want to be saved? One afternoon, while practicing with the dagger near the old bolete tree, Mando arrived, holding a bloodied cloth. "There's been another attack," Mando said, breathless. "This time, Esse Behe Nila Alincora, the baby Nawawala." Eloy froze. He had known it would happen again. But this time, it felt more personal. He remembered Alincora. She used to give him bananas when he was a child. She never looked at him like a curse. And now her family was broken. "I could have stopped it," Eloy whispered. "No," Mando replied, placing a firm hand on his friend's shoulder. "You're not the enemy. They are. And we'll stop them. Together." But Eloy didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a curse walking in human skin. That night, Tadong Idro gave him something strange, a cloth bundle wrapped in banana leaves. Inside it was a black feather, smooth and warm to the touch, and a small red stone. "This belonged to your Lola," Tatong said. "It was her protection, her focus. She used it when the voices were too loud, when her blood wanted to turn against her." Eloy held it tightly. It pulsed, just like the mutia in his chest. "She wasn't just a healer," Tatong continued. "She was a guardian, the last of her line. Until now." The truth hit Eloy like a wave. He wasn't just part of something dark. He was born to fight it. And now, with his blood awakened, the enemy knew exactly where to find him. That night, the air turned thick. The moon didn't rise. And from the hills, they heard it, drums. Slow, deep, like a heartbeat made of stone. It was an ancient signal, the beginning of something terrible. "They're calling their kind," Tatong whispered, staring into the trees. "The gathering has started." Eloy stood at the edge of the forest with Mando beside him, both holding blades. "Do you feel that?" Mando asked, voice low. Eloy nodded. The earth itself seemed to tremble beneath their feet. All around them, the jungle was too quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the sound of breathing and the distant beat of war drums. Then a scream, far but clear, followed by another. And then fire. Orange light lit up the sky beyond the hills. Smoke rose. Flames crackled. The enemy wasn't hiding anymore. They were moving. And they were angry. The village had less than a day. Tadong gathered the elders. Everyone capable of fighting prepared what little they had. Wooden spears, sharpened knives, blessed salt, and herbs. But everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. Not against creatures that could fly. That could turn into smoke. That could wear your dead mother's face. "They want to wipe us out before the blood moon," Tadong said, drawing marks in the dirt. "That's when their power reaches its peak. If they succeed, they'll spread beyond these mountains." Eloy looked at the drawing. It was a sigil, a warning symbol written in an old tongue. He didn't know how he understood it, but somehow, deep inside, the meaning came to him. Sacrifice will be asked. He clenched his fists. That night, he and Mando stood watch on the hilltop. They didn't speak much. The silence between them was filled with memory, of childhood games, of secrets whispered under the trees, of laughter that now felt so far away. "Do you think we'll survive this?" Mando finally asked. Eloy looked at him. "I don't know." Mando nodded. "If I die, make sure my Nene knows I tried." "You won't die," Eloy replied, though even he didn't believe it. "I'm scared, bro," Mando whispered. "So am I," Eloy admitted. They stood there for a long time, side by side, watching the flames grow in the distance. Then the trees shifted. A sound too close. Something moved behind them, fast, crawling on all fours. Mando turned just in time to block a swipe from a creature with glowing red eyes and bat-like wings. They fought it together, blades flashing in the moonlight. It screamed and vanished into the night, but not before leaving deep cuts on Mando's arm. Tadong arrived moments later. "It's begun," he said grimly. "The scouts are here. The rest are not far behind." Eloy helped Mando up. "We have to get ready." Tadong nodded. "Tomorrow night is the blood moon. That's when their leader will rise. If we don't stop them before then," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. As they returned to the village, Eloy felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. The fear in every face, the unanswered questions, the blood on his hands. He was supposed to be the last hope. But inside, all he felt was broken. That night, he sat alone beneath the Belit tree, clutching both the mutia and the red stone from his Lola. He whispered into the night, "Please give me strength, even if I'm afraid, even if I fall." The wind answered with silence. But in the shadows, something stirred. The final battle was coming, and the darkness had only just begun to show its true face. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that made the skin crawl. Eloy sat beneath the Belit tree, still gripping the red stone and the mutia, his thoughts spiraling. Everything felt like it was crumbling. The weight of being the last hope pressed hard against his chest, but something deeper was starting to whisper in the back of his mind. A strange pull, a strange knowing, like the stones weren't just weapons or protection. They were memories, pieces of something larger, long buried. And he was the key. Suddenly, a cold gust passed by, and the branches of the Belit tree creaked. Then he heard again, his mother's voice, soft, calling his name. "Eloy, Enoch." He stood quickly, scanning the darkness. "Mama." But no one answered. Instead, a figure stepped out from the shadows. A woman in white, with hair falling over her face, barefoot, her presence both calming and terrifying. She didn't speak, but the mutia began to glow faintly. Eloy's breath hitched. He felt drawn to her, like a child recognizing a lullaby. "Who are you?" he whispered. Then, from behind him, Tadong Idro's voice came sharp and urgent. "Wag Kong Lalapit, Eloy." "Yeloy Spoon," Konfu said. "Tatong, it's her. I think it's Mama." But when he turned back, the woman was gone, vanished like smoke. Tatong rushed to his side. "That's not your mother, Eloy. That's a Mananamble, a spirit of deceit. They appear as your deepest desire. They twist what you miss most." Eloy staggered back, his heart pounding. "Why would she come now?" "Because you're close to awakening fully. They're scared of what you might become." Eloy didn't speak. He was shaking inside. The lines between reality and magic were beginning to blur. And the enemy? They knew how to reach into his soul. Later that night, while the others were reinforcing the village with salt and herbs, Eloy slipped away. He needed answers, real ones. He returned to his family's burned hut, now nothing but charred wood and ash. There he found something strange. A corner of the floor had survived, and beneath it was a hidden box. Old, locked. He forced it open. Inside, a faded journal. His mother's handwriting. The first page made his blood run cold. "If you're reading this, Eloy, it means you've seen what I could no longer protect you from. The curse runs deeper than you know. Our family, we were once part of them." Eloy stared, breath shallow. "Part of who?" He flipped the page. "Your Lola tried to break free. She chose to fight. But your Lolo, he embraced the darkness. It cost him everything. That's why I ran. Why try to raise you far from this place? But always finds us. Blood remembers." Tears filled Eloy's eyes. His bloodline was not just cursed. It was divided. One side protectors, the other monsters. He had inherited both. Suddenly, Everything made sense. The way he could hear whispers before others, the dreams, the strange pull toward dark places. He wasn't just chosen to fight the evil. He was born from it. And that's why the Aswangs hadn't killed him yet. They were waiting for him to choose. He returned to the village with the journal tucked under his shirt, heart pounding harder with every step. When he arrived, a new tension filled the air. People were shouting. Mando was bleeding. Tinatanka, Kaming Pasukin, a woman cried. They're already inside. Eloy rushed to Mando, who was leaning against a tree, blood soaking his sleeve. They came during the blessing of the land, Mando hissed. One of them, it was Aling Sima. Eloy blinked in disbelief. The herb seller? She's not human. Or maybe she hasn't been for a long time. She's a spy. They've been among us. A cold chill ran down Eloy's spine. If the Aswangs had planted people in the village, no one was safe. Not even those closest to him. That night, Eloy didn't sleep. He read the rest of the journal, heart aching with every page. His mother had fought her own family. She had run from the mountain clans, defied the elders who had wanted her to hand Eloy over for training. Not training to fight the Aswangs, but to become one. That's what the bloodline was meant for. Power. But she had chosen love instead. She chose him. But now, with the blood moon only hours away, Eloy wasn't sure which side he was becoming. He kept hearing a voice in his head. Embrace it. Let go. Join us. The mutia in his chest fought back, glowing hot whenever the voice came. The red stone from his Lolo would pulse like a warning. But deep inside, he felt cracks forming. At dawn, he went to Tadong and told him the truth. Tadong didn't speak for a long time. Then, he placed a hand on Eloy's shoulder. It doesn't matter what blood flows in you. What matters is what you choose to do with it. But what if I can't fight it? Eloy whispered. What if I become like them? Tatong's eyes were filled with sadness. Then at least you'll fight knowing who you are. That's more than most can say. Later that day, as they prepared to travel to the ancient stone circle for the final battle, another twist unraveled. A messenger came, gasping, barely alive. His chest was scratched deeply. The Aswangs, they've taken someone. Who? Eloy asked. The boy struggled to speak. Tadong. Tadong Idro. Eloy's world froze. No, that can't be. I just spoke to him. But when he rushed back to the hut, Tadong was gone. No sign of struggle, just a trail of blood and burned herbs. Mando found a mark carved into the tree near Tatong's hut. It was the same sigil from the journal. Sacrifice will be asked. And now, the village had no albulario, no leader. Only Eloy remained, the one with mixed blood, the one who might save them or destroy them. He knelt in the dirt, clutching the stones, eyes closed. Please, he whispered, voice trembling. Tell me what I need to do. And that's when the wind spoke. A low hum, then a word. A go. The name of the Aswang prince. The one who had cursed his bloodline. Eloy remembered the story from a journal. Ago wasn't just the enemy. He was Eloy's uncle, and he was coming. With Tadong captured and the blood moon rising, Eloy had no more time for fear. He stood slowly, the red stone glowing hot in his hand. Tonight, everything would begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The night of the blood moon arrived, casting a deep crimson light over the mountains. Everything seemed sharper, more alive, yet eerily silent. Even the insects had quieted, as if they too feared what was coming. Eloy stood at the edge of the stone circle known as Dien Ing Anino, the Cradle of Shadows, the place where his ancestors once swore loyalty to the dark bloodline, and where tonight he would decide if the curse would end or continue through him. His breath clouded in the air, even though the night was warm. The red stone pulsed faintly in his palm, and the mutia around his neck burned against his skin like it was warning him. This was it. He wasn't alone. Mando stood by his side, his wounds bound but not forgotten. Beside them were a few brave villagers, those who still believed, those willing to fight. But against what? The sky cracked with thunder, not from clouds, but from the splitting of an ancient barrier. From a forest emerged shapes, dozens of them, some twisted like shadows, others walking on human feet, but within human eyes. The Aswangs had come, and at their center walked a figure cloaked in bone-white cloth, taller than any man, with eyes that shimmered like blood. Ago, Eloy's uncle, his mother's brother, and the one who had cursed their blood. Ago stopped at the edge of the stone circle, his voice loud but calm, like a priest delivering a sermon. "Eloy," he said, "you came. The blood answers the call." Eloy didn't move. "Where is Tatong?" Ago smiled, mocking slow. "He served his purpose. He opened the gate for me, as he was meant to." Pain twisted in Eloy's chest. Tatong betrayed them? Or had he been forced? "Why are you doing this?" Eloy demanded, gripping the red stone tighter. "What do you want from me?" Ago stepped forward, his form flickering between human and something darker. "I want you to stop pretending, to stop running from your birthright. You are one of us, Eloy. Stronger than your mother, stronger than any of them. You are the bridge, the one born of shadow and light. You can unite the bloodline once more." "I don't want your power," Eloy spat. "But you already have it," Ago replied. "You felt it, didn't you? The hunger, the strength, the dreams. You were never ordinary. You were meant to lead." Mando shouted from behind, "Don't listen to him, Eloy." But doubt had already crept into Eloy's heart. He had felt something, especially after finding the journal. That part of him, that part that wanted to stop hiding and feel power, just once. "I'm not like you," Eloy said, voice trembling. Ago's eyes gleamed. "Aren't you? Look around you, Eloy. The humans fear you. They talk of curses behind your back. They think you'll turn, just like your Lolo did. Join me, and I'll give you control. Say yes, and I'll spare them." He gestured to the villagers. The threat was clear. Say no, and they all die. The circle of stone began to glow faintly, responding to the blood moon. It was time, the final choice. Eloy looked at his hands, one holding the red stone from his Lola, pulsing with warmth. The other hand, now trembling, marked with a faint scar from his birth. The two halves of his bloodline were at war. Ago raised his arms, summoning a storm of black mist around him. The Aswangs began to chant, their voices low and monstrous. Then something unexpected happened. A second figure stepped into the circle. Tatong, bruised, bleeding but alive. He held a broken staff in one hand, his eyes tired but burning with fire. "You still have a choice, Eloy," he croaked. "Don't let blood decide who you are. Let your soul decide." Ago snarled. "Old man, you should have stayed dead." But Tatong didn't flinch, and something inside Eloy snapped into place. He saw it clearly now. The Mutia was not a weapon. It was a seal, a memory of sacrifice. His mother had given up everything for him to live free. Tatong had risked death to guide him. Mando had bled to protect him. They weren't doing it because they believed he was a weapon. They did it because they believed he could choose. And so, Eloy made his choice. He lifted the red stone high. "No," he shouted, voice shaking the air. "I will not join you. I will end this." Ago roared in rage, and the circle exploded in dark energy. The Aswangs rushed forward, but Eloy slammed the stone to the ground, activating the seal his ancestors had tried to destroy. Light erupted, not white, but red gold, a fusion of dark and light. Ago screamed, clawing at the air, trying to stop it. "You don't know what you're doing." But Eloy did. He wasn't choosing one side. He was rewriting both. The light struck the Aswangs first, turning some to ash, purifying others. It didn't kill, it judged. Those two far gone dissolved. Those who were lost were freed. A ghost staggered, part of his body burning away. You're destroying everything. No, Eloy said, stepping forward. I'm setting it right. With a final cry, Eloy pressed the red stone into the heart of the stone circle. The earth cracked. The blood moon pulsed and vanished. The mist cleared. The night returned to stillness. A go was gone. The Aswangs, those who survived, fled into the shadows. Silence fell. Then a soft wind. Peaceful. The villagers began to emerge, cautious, blinking into the now clear sky. Some wept. Others simply dropped to their knees in shock. Mando clutched his side, staggering to Eloy. You did it. Eloy was silent. His eyes were full of tears, not of triumph, but of release. He didn't feel victorious. He felt tired. Tatong joined him, laying a hand on his shoulder. You carry both light and shadow now, Eloy. But you chose to be human. Eloy nodded, barely whispering, but at what cost? Before anyone could answer, the ground shimmered, and a single feather floated down from the sky. Black on one side, white on the other. Eloy caught it in his hand. Then he looked at the sky, the stars slowly returning. But something in his gut twisted, because deep in the wind, carried on the breath of silence, a new whisper came. You open the door, boy, and something else came through. And just like that, the true nightmare had only just begun. The morning after the blood moon felt like a strange dream. The village was quiet, not in fear anymore, but in shock. Trees stood still. The mist that usually clung to the fields had lifted. Birds cautiously returned to their songs. But nothing felt the same. Eloy sat alone on the steps of the old Bahane Nabato, holding the black and white feather in his hand. He turned it over slowly, again and again, like it would somehow give him answers. But it was silent. The red stone, now cracked down the center, rested beside him. Its power gone, or maybe just sleeping. People had begun to rebuild already. Mando was organizing the youth to repair fences and rooftops. The villagers, those who survived the night, looked at Eloy differently now. Some with gratitude, others with fear. A few avoided his eyes completely. He didn't blame them. He had used something ancient, something powerful. And even though he saved them, there was still the question, what had he become? Tadong sat beside him quietly, wrapping his old knuckles with cloth. His face was older somehow, more worn, but peaceful. You did well, Oppo. Eloy didn't answer. You saved them, Tatong added gently. But I also opened the door, Eloy finally whispered, staring out toward the horizon. Something else came through Lolo. I felt it. Before Go disappeared, he looked scared, not of me, but of what's next. Tadong nodded slowly. Yes, because power never disappears. It only shifts. Eloy looked down at his hands. Then did I really win? You chose the harder path, Tatong said, placing a hand on his shoulder. You chose to carry the burden rather than pass it on. That is victory. Later that afternoon, Eloy walked through the village. People greeted him cautiously. Some offered fruits, food, quiet blessings. A mother even handed him a charm made of sampaguita flowers for protection. The kids peeked out from behind trees, wide-eyed. He smiled gently, nodding. Mando met him near the hill where the final fight happened. His side was still wrapped, but he walked stronger now. Looks like you're the village legend now, Mando joked, offering him some pandesal. Eloy chuckled softly. I don't feel like a legend. You shouldn't, Mando said. You feel like a person. That's what makes you different from them. They sat on the grass, eating in silence for a while. The trees whispered quietly. The wind was cool. You know, Mando said, eyes on the sky, my Lola used to say. The bravest ones are the ones who face the darkness and come back with light. Eloy looked up. The sky was clear blue, scattered with white clouds. I don't know if I brought back light, he said, You brought hope, Mando replied. That's even harder. But not everything was at peace. That night, Eloi stood before the cracked stone circle again. The ground was quiet, undisturbed. But beneath it, he could feel something shifting. A hum, faint and low, like a drumbeat deep inside the earth. The seal he used may have ended ago, but it didn't erase the past. From behind him came the gentle rustle of cloth. A familiar presence. Aling Faley, the spirit guide who once warned him, appeared like mist from the trees. Her translucent form still flickered like candlelight. You have done what many could not, she said softly. You faced the bloodline. You held the balance. But something came through, Eloi said. Didn't it? She nodded. Yes. A shadow older than ago. Older than the curse. A hunger that was sleeping but stirred when you tore the veil. Eloy's heart sank. So, I didn't end it. You delayed it, Aling Faley said. You gave your people time. A chance. That is more than anyone has done for generations. She stepped closer, touching his forehead lightly with one glowing finger. You are the bridge, she said, not just between light and shadow, but between then and now. And you are not alone. Eloi felt warmth in his chest. Not power, but purpose. That night, he buried the cracked red stone under the roots of a bolete tree, the same tree where his mother once prayed for him as a child. He wrapped it in cloth, tied it with bannig fiber, and left it with a note. For the one who comes after, choose with heart. Weeks passed. The village healed. The darkness that once clouded the mountain began to lift. Crops grew taller. The river cleared. People smiled more. Children laughed again. Life, though still cautious, returned. But Eloi knew it wouldn't stay silent forever. One night, as he lay in bed, he had a dream. A vision of a forest burning. Not from fire, but from a strange black wind. A woman's voice whispered his name, not with fear, but with need. And in the sky, the blood moon rose once more, but cracked like glass. He awoke with a gasp. Tadong sat nearby, carving wood with his knife. Without looking up, he said, You felt it again, didn't you? Eloi nodded slowly. Tadong placed the carving down. It was a figure of a child holding a torch. Then rest now, he said, because this was only your first battle. And when the next one comes, we will face it together. Outside, the wind carried the scent of Elong Elong and smoke. The village slept peacefully, and Eloi, heart still heavy but steadier, closed his eyes, not in fear, but in readiness. He knew now that the curse wasn't a chain. It was a challenge, and he had accepted it. But far beyond the mountain, in a cave deep and forgotten, a pair of glowing red eyes opened slowly, watching, waiting, and the earth whispered again. Soon, yet in that moment, high above in the stars, a light blinked back. Not of threat, but of hope. And the boy who was once cursed became the one who would rewrite the fate of them all. Wackus,